Before I begin this review, yes, I've been slacking off this week as far as reviews go. I'm sorry, but I did work on 2 collaborative reviews. That's kind of where my attention has been mostly this week. One of them was for the Dark Knight's 10-year anniversary. Card is right there if you want to check out that video. I also did one for the first Equalizer movie. I had never seen it before until a couple of days ago, and I wanted to get prepped for Equalizer 2, so there's that collab review over there. You can check on both of them if you really want to. It was fun to do both, but now let's talk about a movie that I saw yesterday on my birthmas. It's Unfriended Dark Web. Unfriended Dark Web is the sequel to the first Unfriended movie that got spoiled entirely in its trailers. Unfriended Dark Web is about a film that gets spoiled entirely in its trailers. Almost exactly the same. I went into this film with a little bit of mixed expectations. I wanted to like this movie because it got a lot of praise when it was surprisingly announced at South by Southwest. I heard a lot of comparisons to The Den, and when I watched the trailer I was like, yeah, this definitely feels like a spiritual successor to The Den, which is a movie on Netflix that I actually kind of liked. Like, I don't know what many people think of that movie, but I actually kind of like that movie. It's definitely a better Unfriended movie than Unfriended, which leads me into why I wasn't looking forward to this movie so much, was because of that first Unfriended movie. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it at all. Like, a lot of people like to hype that movie up as like, oh, it's so scary because it feels like you're actually on a real computer. I was like, you gotta do more than that to be like really good. I didn't really like Unfriended like at all, really. There's a couple things that save it for me, like as far as just me not completely hating it, but it's just not a good movie in my eyes. So I walked in a little mixed. I was hoping for the best, but then again, first movie, maybe this is a birthday high. You can accuse me of that all you want. I did see it yesterday on my birthday with a couple of great friends of mine. Maybe I was just swept up in the funness of the day already, that I walked out of this movie enjoying it. Not to say that this movie is without its flaws, because there definitely is some issues with this film that I can acknowledge. But overall, I had a much better time with this film than the first Unfriended. And yes, I will keep this review kind of pictureless, keep it a little bit more vague, because the trailers do spoil a lot, and the pictures come from the trailers, and one picture detail that you notice could lead to your spoiling in case you haven't seen the trailers, just in case. If you haven't seen the trailers, then here you go. But one improvement over the first Unfriended in my eyes was definitely the lead characters. They're much better this time around. The first one was just a bunch of douchebag teenagers who were just complete douches and nothing else. This one is just about a bunch of college graduates who are great friends with each other, and they just act like real friends. Like, it was much easier to follow these guys than the first Unfriended's characters. The lead character, Matthias, the movie opens with him, and he's found this laptop and he's doing something story-wise. The movie opens up what feels like in the middle of his story, and it kind of gives you this feeling of there's a history to each of these characters before the movie has even started, and it helps you get more invested because you want to learn more about it. The first Unfriended, the first like 30 minutes or so, it's really draggy because it's a lot of douchebag characters talking over Skype, and horror kicks in much later, and you're not really invested with that at all. Before the horror kicks in this movie, however, you're already kind of interested because Matthias has a very interesting character conflict going on that I really appreciated. Serena and Nari, 2 other characters, Nari played by a Blumhouse favorite, Betty Gabriel, those 2 also I really liked in this movie. There's a couple things that are brought up that I really liked about them. Damon is a character who's set in London. He was also very good in this movie. He's a very likable guy who works with the other cast very well. AJ, there's a few moments where he gets a little bit too comedically goofball-y, if you know what I mean, but overall I liked his character. I thought he was pretty funny, and he worked as a more comedic relief, and there's one part in particular involving him that's a crowd favorite. Jesus Christ, it was excellent. One of their friends named Lex, she's definitely a little bit more underused than the others, but when you see what she has to do in this movie, it's not like it matters too much. They could have made her a little bit more memorable, but by the end of the day, you're just kind of like, whatever, like, she has to do this one thing, and that's kind of it, so it's not like it's a huge hindrance, but they definitely could have done something to better it. And all of these characters, they could have had arcs, or at least our main character, Matthias, he could have had a character arc where he changes or he realizes something he should have realized long ago or something. And it didn't really feel like any kind of arc was fully established. They set up some potential arcs, but it doesn't really feel like it comes to a close because this movie, it has a thriller to get through, so it feels like all of that is put aside just to get to some thrills. And this movie doesn't necessarily need a overarching character arc, especially when you see where this film goes in certain ways. But at the end of the day, it is something that could have made this film feel a little bit more deep, maybe a little bit more personal, hit you in the feels a little bit, something like that. Kind of like how they could have made the character of Lex more memorable, they definitely could have inserted character arcs that are well established and well fleshed out, and they didn't really. So I kind of do need to knock this movie a little bit for that, because it doesn't really fully realize the potential it has as a film. But overall, I still did enjoy watching these characters, whether or not they had character arcs or not. Like, they did interact with each other like a real group of friends would, not a bunch of unlikable douchebags. Like, they all actually have good performances too, so that's a major plus. And when the thrills do eventually kick in, like I mentioned earlier, it does get pretty riveting from there on. It's not like the most riveting film I've ever seen or anything, but it is quite tension-fueled once you start to get into the thick of it. And when you see where this film is actually leading up to, it is actually very well done, in my opinion. Of course, this is only ending 1 or 2 of 2 endings. In case you don't know, there's this marketing scheme that Blumhouse is doing where they're trying to trick you into seeing this movie twice, just at different theaters. They're saying that one theater has this ending, but the other theater has this other ending. We just kind of randomly put different endings in different theaters. Like, go search it out, pay more money to see these endings, and that's a little scummy. I don't know why Blumhouse is all about these weird marketing tactics now, like the Purge TV series having a trailer in the credits for the first Purge, and now this, 2 different endings, just different theaters. It's a little scummy, a little slimy, but when I watched the ending that I got, I was like, I'm honestly fully satisfied. If you told me that there was another ending out there, I'd honestly be completely surprised, because this ending really works well. And I read up on the other ending. I spoiled myself of that ending. I just read it online somewhere, and I was like, if I had watched that ending, I feel like it would have ended on a very anticlimactic note. I'm glad that I got this ending, because it actually fits well with the rest of the film in my eyes. I don't know if maybe it's just a visual thing, I have to see the other ending to see if it actually fits, but just by reading it, it sounds really dumb, so I'm glad I got the ending I got. And if you want to know which ending I got, I'll just ask you this. Motor vehicle, dirt. I have dirt. You will know what I mean when you see the movie. The hacker characters definitely do some stuff that is straight up fiction, like there's definitely some stuff that is unrealistic to the real world, and I know one of the major pluses people had with the first Unfriended is that it felt so realistic it could like actually happen, and in this one there's definitely stuff that people will look at and be like, well, the Skype stuff and the internet stuff is realistic, but then you have the hackers and this dark web stuff, I don't know if that's entirely realistic, so I'm sure there'll be some people that are gonna be turned off. If you're a fan of the first Unfriended, you might be turned off by what they do in this movie. I really wasn't. Like, I was able to buy into it a little bit because it seemed like this movie was just kind of embracing the fiction world that they were in. Like, when you see where the film goes plot-wise, I was just kind of like, yeah, it just kind of seems like they're embracing this story and they just wanted to write something that was very unique and, like, whatever. That was just whatever to me. Like, I was able to buy into it more. Definitely, noticeably, like, implausible, obviously, but it's like, I don't really care because it's still pretty fun. And it's nothing too far out of the realm of possibility, at least in my eyes. Like, I could see someone maybe someday being able to do certain things that they do in this movie. Like, I could just see that happening. Like, they didn't do anything too far-fetched. Definitely stuff that you wouldn't normally see, but it's nothing too left field. So I know this review's been pretty vague. I'm trying to keep it as spoiler-free and not too detailed as possible, but overall I did have a fun time with this movie. The characters were much better. The thrills in this movie got really good, especially one scene in particular. It's a crowd favorite and I loved it, and even in the beginning part where the first Unfriended dragged for me, that beginning part, this one I actually thought like, okay, this is actually pretty good character building and world building for this film. There's definitely some implausible hacker stuff. The characters, one character could have been a little better, but the character arcs definitely could have been in there. There's certain things that are set up that aren't fully realized. And once again, it's not like you really needed character arcs in this movie, but it is something that they could have added. Like, it's not something that they couldn't add, but they could have if they really wanted to, and it just didn't seem like they wanted to do that. So it just kind of creates this mood of a very simple thriller. This movie's very fast. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes, so the pacing is actually very good. It goes by very quickly. I was honestly kind of surprised when things were starting to wrap up. I was like, oh, that was fast. So this isn't going to change horror films. This isn't like revolutionary in the Skype horror movie genre that we've got now, but it is a fun movie to say the least. It's definitely better than the first Unfriended. I wouldn't say this is like the Empire Strikes Back of Unfriended or something, because that's dumb, this movie's not that good, but it is still good, and it's definitely an improvement, and I can definitely see a potential future of anthology Unfriended films. I don't want to see Laura Barnes come back, and I don't really want to see these hackers come back either. I think it works much better if they're just self-contained kind of anthology pieces, like the Cloverfield movies were trying to do, until Paradox. Hopefully Unfriended doesn't pull a Paradox then. I'm gonna give Unfriended Dark Web a B-. It has its fun thrills, it has some really likable characters that you can follow much easier than the first one. It does suffer from some issues writing-wise overall. It's not a perfect movie. It is a very simple movie too, but overall I had a good time with it. Maybe a couple days from now I'll think, man, that movie kind of sucked, and I'll lower my grade. Maybe this is all a birthday high, still going on a day later, but I liked it. Sorry. But if you've seen Unfriended Dark Web, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and also make sure you leave a spoiler warning when you comment this, but tell me which ending you got and what you thought of that ending, because that's very interesting to hear about, to say the least. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.